The visionary's natural style thrives on abstract systems and integrative thinking, making them uniquely attuned to the quantum understanding that consciousness is not a passive spectator, but an active force in shaping reality. The principle that consciousness is the architect, not the bystander, reveals that visionaries don't just receive inspiration, they build the lattice of what becomes possible. Every idea they synthesize contributes to the subtle architecture of future realities, acting as design blueprints in the field of becoming. Their motivation direction of towards takes on new depth when consciousness is recognized as a causal force. It is not enough to want or dream of the future. Their forward-directed will becomes an act of authorship. Every intention is a structural command issued into the quantum matrix. When the visionary acts with clarity and conviction, their consciousness doesn't wait for opportunities, it constructs them. Their drive becomes a form of engineering reality. With attention focus on others, visionaries instinctively extend their design consciousness outward. But when they lead from the belief that their very presence alters the structure of group mind, they evolve from influencers to coders of collective experience. Their role is not to push others, but to shape emotional, ideological, and psychological environments in which transformation arises naturally. Their internal frame of reference becomes a sacred design tool under this principle. Their intuition and inner knowing are not just guidance. They are active schematics forming new probability lines. When visionaries refine this internal signal through self-awareness, integrity, and alignment, their capacity to architect becomes exponentially precise. Inner coherence equals outer effectiveness. An operational style rooted in options shows that the visionary resists premature structuring, which is essential to architecting new paradigms. The principle reminds them that flexible consciousness is the true creative substrate. Their freedom to reimagine and remix patterns is not randomness. It is structural play within a pliable reality. Each option held without fixation is like scaffolding waiting to be activated by conscious focus. The general viewpoint of thematic expression means visionaries communicate through meta-architecture. Their words shape culture, their frameworks shape movement. When they understand their communication not just as speech, but as structural imprinting, their responsibility shifts. Every statement becomes a brick in the ideological architecture they're constructing. Vague communication dissolves impact. Precision becomes spiritual architecture. In proximity to a team, visionaries function like design catalysts. They emit structural coherence or distortion. Their thought forms can magnetize alignment or trigger chaos, depending on their inner architecture. The most impactful visionaries stabilize themselves, so their conscious presence provides blueprint energy for the group, calibrating the frequency of ideation, direction, and coherence through the field. Their associated emotional engagement infuses their visions with life force. Passion is not just fuel, it is code. What they feel strongly becomes embedded in what they build. If they lead from emotional clarity, their creations gain resonance and durability. But if they create from unresolved emotional patterns, they embed instability into the design. To be a conscious architect, emotional awareness becomes structural hygiene. As a mismatcher, the visionary questions existing structures, which is essential in re-architecting reality. But the shift here is that they're not just rejecting old systems, they are designing new energetic scaffolds. Every alternative they propose must carry not just critique, but coherence. The act of conscious deconstruction becomes powerful only when paired with reconstruction. Dismantling without rebuilding leaves psychic ruins. The true architect rebuilds better. With a through-time orientation, the visionary sees architecture unfolding across timelines. The future is not a place they wait for. It is a structure they are already building with every thought, every insight, every plan. Their primary drive, ideas, now becomes sacred construction. They do not just entertain ideas, they seed structures into the quantum field. Ideas are not clouds, they are foundations. The visionary becomes most powerful when they know, I'm not describing reality, I'm designing it. Quantum leaders, the visionary. Polarity creates the blueprint of experience. The visionary's natural style as a synthesizer of systems is uniquely attuned to polarity. Their abstract intelligence functions not by avoiding opposites, but by holding them in tension, ideation versus implementation, chaos versus order, imagination versus structure. Polarity is not a conflict to resolve, but a dynamic from which structure emerges. The visionary's role is to allow opposites to coexist long enough for a new paradigm to be born. With a motivation direction of towards, visionaries seek expansion and creation, but polarity ensures that movement always carries its countercurrent. For every forward leap, there is resistance. For every innovation, a backlash. Visionary leaders harness this not as obstruction, but as frictional feedback that sharpens clarity. True forward movement comes not from bypassing resistance, but from integrating it into the architecture of transformation. An attention focus on others places the visionary between personal insight and collective need. Polarity appears as the tension between individual vision and group acceptance. Great visionaries honor this polarity, pushing the envelope while attuning to collective timing. They understand that their role is to hold space between the future they see and the readiness of the world to receive it. Their internal frame of reference gives them intuitive clarity, but polarity invites the humility of feedback. The internal world may hold truth, but so does the external response. Rather than validate one in favor of the other, visionaries function best when they allow inner conviction and outer reflection to dance, using polarity to test, refine, and elevate their ideas into universally resonant frameworks. An operational style rooted in options reveals a polarity between freedom and structure. Visionaries flourish when they explore possibilities, but those possibilities gain power only when paired with the gravity of commitment. This creative tension between open exploration and structural crystallization becomes the forge in which lasting innovation is tempered. The general viewpoint they favor allows them to hold opposites at scale: chaos and clarity, novelty and tradition, speed and patience. Polarity at the thematic level lets them see entire ecosystems of contradiction, and instead of choosing sides, they build bridges. Their communication becomes transformative because it does not simplify, it integrates. Their work preference for proximity introduces polarity between autonomy and alliance. The visionary thrives among aligned thinkers, but must navigate the tension between influencing others and being shaped by them. Too much proximity can dilute vision. Too much distance can fracture collaboration. Mastery lies in rhythmically shifting between generative solitude and high-caliber synergy. In emotional engagement, their associated style brings intensity. Visionaries live inside their creations, but polarity reminds them that detachment is just as crucial. Emotional charge gives power to vision, but emotional clarity ensures stability. The creative life requires both immersion and distance, passion and perspective. Holding both without collapse is the mark of the mature visionary. Their mismatcher approach thrives on contradiction, but polarity reminds them not to reject one pole in favor of the other. Every problem carries its own inverse solution. Every norm they question points to a hidden intelligence. Visionaries who resist only half the polarity risk becoming reactive. Visionaries who integrate the whole polarity become alchemists, transmuting tension into transformation. With a through-time orientation, polarity shows up as long arcs of conflict and resolution, rise and fall, entropy and emergence. The visionary does not panic at disruption. They see it as a cyclical necessity. Evolution is a dance of opposites, and timelines that hold polar tension with grace become the soil of lasting change. Their primary drive, ideas, comes to life through this polarity. Ideas that live are not one-sided. They are paradoxical. The most powerful ideas are those that include their own counterpoint, structurally whole because they were forged in the fire of opposites. Quantum leaders, the visionary. Quantum entanglement, the thread between all things. The visionary's natural style of system-based, interconnected thinking is a living expression of quantum entanglement. They sense that ideas are not isolated. They resonate across time, people, disciplines, and consciousness fields. Visionaries don't just think in systems, they feel in systems. Entanglement shows them that each insight is already woven into the larger whole, and their task is not to invent disconnected brilliance, but to reveal the threads already binding the unseen to the emerging. With a motivation direction of towards, visionaries are pulled forward by goals, But quantum entanglement transforms this into more than personal ambition. Their goals are entangled with collective needs, planetary timing, and karmic cycles. What they create isn't solely theirs, it's part of a greater unfolding. This principle teaches that the more selfless their vision becomes, the more precise their placement in the web of global change. The attention focus on others becomes a direct channel of entanglement. Visionaries are receivers for collective dreams, fears, and longings. When they tune into others, they're not gathering information. They are activating relational threads. Their attention becomes a connector, weaving networks of aligned purpose. Their power lies not in reaching large audiences, but in vibrating at a level where others awaken alongside them. Their internal frame of reference is not isolation, it is interior resonance with the field. Entanglement teaches that internal insight is never separate from the external world. It is a mirror of what is shifting everywhere. Visionaries operate best when they no longer see themselves as originators of ideas, but as attuned instruments in a co-vibrating network of insight. Their inner knowing becomes validated through outer synchronicity. An operational style based on options reveals their innate response to entangled complexity. Every idea they entertain is already linked to other outcomes. Visionaries navigate this field not by forcing clarity too soon, but by sensing which pathways are activated by connection. Their role is not to choose the best option, but to trace the thread of highest resonance across entangled futures. The general viewpoint they operate from allows them to speak across boundaries, linking economics to ecology, philosophy to technology, psychology to governance. These thematic bridges emerge because of entangled awareness. Everything is connected beneath surface distinctions. Visionaries who embrace this can speak to diverse fields with relevance, not by translation but by touching the universal. Their work preference for proximity deepens under this principle. When working closely with others, they do not merely collaborate, they entangle. Minds and energies sync, creating fields of shared creativity where thought is transmitted without words, and innovation accelerates through coherence. The visionary's presence becomes catalytic in high-resonance teams, not due to dominance, but due to energetic alignment. Emotional engagement for the visionary is intense because they feel entangled. They are emotionally embedded in their vision, but also in the people, outcomes, and social consequences of their ideas. This emotional fusion can overwhelm unless the visionary practices energetic hygiene, learning when to gently disentangle without severing connection. Boundaried entanglement allows them to lead without burnout. As a mismatcher, the visionary naturally disrupts, but entanglement reframes this. They are not outside the system critiquing it. They are entangled within it, reshaping from the inside. Their questions ripple through the web of ideas, activating change far beyond their own reach. Every rejection of outdated models becomes a pulse that shifts distant structures, unknown collaborators, and silent allies. Through their through-time orientation, the visionary sees long threads across generations. They do not just design for now, they respond to entangled signals from the future. Time itself becomes a thread, and the visionary tunes into potential futures that are already reaching back through entanglement to shape present choice. Their primary drive, ideas, are not their own. Each idea is a node, lighting up the network, calling others to coherence. Visionary leadership here means acting as a living portal, where insight travels, connects, and transforms through quantum relationality.